Shares for beginners.
Phil Muscatello and Finpods are authorised reps of Money Sherpa. The information in this podcast is general in nature and doesn't take into account your personal situation.
I don't believe that everyone should be renovating real estate or being a developer. I don't believe that everyone should potentially be running an Amazon business or even trading shares. I think that everyone should go, well, how can I build a portfolio of wealth based on me? How can I, in my job, in my income, how can I find out what I'm incredible at and just do the few things that I'm really good at, mitigate against your weaknesses, but how can I communicate based on who I am and then build a solid team around me to support me in the areas that I'm not so great at? And that's where having the best team around you is absolutely key.
G'day and welcome back to Shares for Beginners. I'm Phil Muscatello. What does it mean to escape the middle? And why do so many people feel trapped there? How can everyday investors start building a portfolio that works harder than they do? And what's the secret to creating a legacy that goes way beyond money? G'day, Todd.
Phil, great to see you. Thanks for having me, mate.
Great. Thank you very much for coming on from the rainforest. Todd Polke is an investment strategist with over 20 years of experience. He's the author of Escape the Middle. Todd's helped thousands of Australians break free from financial mediocrity, and his book lays out a roadmap to build wealth that lasts. So, Todd, what is the middle?
Phil, it's such a good question. And to answer that, I'm actually going to take you back to when I first started my investment journey. You know, we all have one of these stories, right? What was the pivotal moment in our life that got us involved in the world of investing and starting to set out a new pathway in life? You know, before I got in the world of investing, I was a burnout personal trainer, working 17 hours a day from 4 a.m. in the morning till about midnight in running a business and doing all the different things you got to think about when you run a business. And so I was doing what I thought I was supposed to be doing. You know, I went to school and I studied, I got out of school, I got a job, I started exchanging time for money. And so my whole rule of creating success back at that point was that, well, the harder I work, the more successful I'll become. And I'm sure many of your listeners have probably tried that strategy before. And now, of course, nothing wrong with the hard work, but the challenge with that is that if it's your only strategy, it leads to burnout. And welcome to my life, right? I'd broken my body, I'd broken my health, broken my relationships. And the one thing that I thought was supposed to be working based on how many hours I was working, well, that wasn't working either. I was broke financially. And I found myself in this place called the middle. And what I mean by the place called the middle is that, well, I had a very small amount of time, a middle amount of time, it was probably even less than that. I had a middle amount of meaning in my life, middle level of income, middle level of earning, middle level of happiness, middle level of freedom. And I found myself in this place called stuck. And I was sitting at the Kangaroo Point Cliffs in Brisbane when I was about 20 years old, and I was fast forwarding, wow, if I just keep going down the same path that I've been going on for the next 5 years, where is my life going to go? Now, at the time, I didn't know what the middle meant, but I looked ahead and I went, wow, that doesn't feel really good. And then I started seeing that so many people around me, including parents and everyone I knew, was having the same experience of wanting more time, wanting more freedom, wanting more choice, wanting more opportunity, but feeling stuck just exchanging time for money and working to pay the bills. And that's what the middle is all about. And I think that freedom is everyone's birthright, and it's time that we have to take it back.
And psychologically, people feel it's the right thing to do in so many ways, don't they? I mean, it's like society programs us to be cogs in the machine and to not think outside of the box, and that, you know, you might be getting above yourself or trying too hard if you try and break out of that. And so a lot of people just automatically just stay there, don't they?
You said it's like you've been reading my mind, Phil. One thing I say all the time is that, like, from birth, we're literally programmed. We're programmed into this space, become an economic cog in the wheel of society. And that's what it is. And that's just what we're taught from all sides, from parents, from teachers, from education system, from society. Because you know what? The government doesn't want crazy people running around being financially free, being able to do what they want to do. You know, money is a form of control. And, you know, anyone that says that money isn't important, well, try living without it. It's just a tool of choice. But unfortunately, we're just not, in no type of education system were we ever taught how to use money, how to manage money, how to invest money, how to create freedom in any way, shape, or form. All we're taught to do is follow this set default life that is laid out before us. And for most people, they get to a point in their life where they go, I want more. I want more choice. I want more opportunity. I want more freedom. but the old rules of the money game of life just have not been giving them the results they want. They start looking for something else.
And in your book, you've got that beautiful analogy that people are seeing other people, travelling down the stream and doing a lot better than their own selves. Because there are many people who do see things clearly and they take these moves and they take the steps to escape the middle. But other people are looking from the side and going, well, how do I do that? Sorry, that was just a little bit of an aside that I wanted to say. But tell us about your journey escaping the middle after that day at Kangaroo Point where you were taking a good, long, hard look at yourself.
One of those at a very early stage in my life. And, just touching on your point there, you just made your little side point. It's so true. And you would see it in what you do as well. The people that take that step to get started, learning how to invest in shares and trade shares and things like that. A lot of people think about it, but very few people get started because most people feel trapped in this comfort zone in their life, right? And they're driven by fear or waiting for the right time or the perfect moment or any of those things. From that moment, sitting on the cliffs in Kangaroo Point at 20 years old, it was December 15. I remember it so well. Like it's just like it was yesterday. I call it your done moment, right? And I was having one of those done moments where it's like line in the sand, I'm done. Not another moment, not another day. That's it. Step over the line and move forward. And, everything that I taught I was supposed to do, I've been doing and it is not working. And I realized the system is broken. And so I went looking for another system. Now, we didn't really have podcasts back then, it was just 20 years ago. We didn't have webinars. We didn't have all these things. It was, let's read some books and let's attend some physical events. And so there were some formative books which really shifted my whole perspective of my psychology because I really believe that wealth begins in the mind. Like what happens first? $1 million in a bank account, become a millionaire as a person, right? And so I started just going crazy, reading books and attending events and things like that. And I had this one experience attending this property investment seminar. Property is my major background. I've traded shares, traded options, done a lot of stuff, but, business investing, alternative investments, but property is my major background. And I met this mentor at this time and I made a decision at this one event. And it was one of those decisions like where you choose to leave all your excuses and all your reasons behind you, right? Like there's one of those true decisions that I was going to buy a property in 6 months' time. But my problem is, well, I had no bloody money, of course, and that makes it difficult to buy real estate, right? But over the next kind of 6 months, I found some ways to save some more money. I found some ways to earn some more money. And I saved up $9,000 over the next 6 months. Now, that might sound like a lot of money to anyone listening, but to me at the time, it was an absolute fortune. Not enough to buy a piece of real estate, but I got the first homeowners grant, stamp duty savings. I bought my very first property in Labrador on the Gold Coast, paid $291,400 for it. $400 because I was out of money. I was done, dusted, but I got the deal done. Saved up another $10,000 over the next 6 months, did a renovation on the property, made $70,000 in profit in that one property deal in the space of 9 months from when I bought it, which incidentally was more than my entire year's income, busting my ass 17 hours a day as a personal trainer. And I learnt this beautiful phrase that the late Jim Rohn said is that profits are better than wages. The profits from my portfolio began to out-earn my income. And from that point in time, I was hooked. Got out of everything I was doing, started in the residential real estate sector, realized it wasn't for me. I was working in an office of 17 agents. Only one other agent had to invest in property. I realized it was the wrong environment. And I literally annoyed the crap out of the guy, my original mentor, for 6 months until he made a job for me. And, that was about 20 years ago now where I got started in the investment world. And since then, I've been coaching and educating investors all around the world how to build strategic wealth portfolios.
So you lost everything early in your investing career because you built a house of cards. Tell us about that story.
Yeah, that was a fun and painful and enjoyable story.
A great lesson, I'm sure.
I'm a way better person and coach because of it, and I'm hypersensitive around protecting people, that's for sure. So here's what happened after I bought that first property. I got the equity out, and I went and did another property deal. And then I got the equity out of that, and I did another property deal. And I'd started doing a lot of trading and options and things like that at that point in time to try and create some more income. And so I started moving forward in my investing, and I got a lot of early success. I built a solid level of wealth at a very young age, which, was a beautiful thing, but it's also when you're young and you don't necessarily have the life experience and some of the challenges to learn from, it can create some scenarios, right? And so I built, as you said, a house of cards. And what I mean by that is that everything looked beautiful on the outside. It was this nice, beautiful structure, and I'd growing it, and I was appearing successful, and I was talking success, and everything was looking that way. But there was no foundation underneath. I didn't have enough buffers in place. I was always relying on pulling more equity out to go and do more deals. I was negatively geared in the portfolio, and I wasn't holding things in the right entity. I wasn't taught how to protect my portfolio. All I thought I was supposed to do was just more. And that's a little bit more amateur hour when it comes to the world of investing, is what I've now learned. What investing truly is, strategy is, sure, accumulating assets, but that's the peak of the iceberg, right? The real majesty behind your portfolio is your strategy and your structure and your system behind it, your personal finance management, how safe you are. And so I didn't keep myself safe. And so all it took was for the wind to blow in the opposite direction, which is a shift in the economy, and everything came crashing down, right? I was bleeding money. I had to sell off the vast majority of my portfolio. My ego took a giant hit. I was humbled in the most magnificent way possible, and I lost everything. I had to start all over again. Painful experience, but absolutely critical for me as a coach. It taught me so much around what wealth truly is, because it's not about building wealth, flash in a pan wealth, and it really is about how do we create sustainable wealth. And I always liken it to options trading. Success in share trading and options trading has everything to do with sticking to your rules, right? And I'm sure you teach a bunch of these things. And how do you keep yourself safe while you're growing out your portfolio?
What was the kind of options trading that you were doing?
I was mainly doing bull put spreads was my primary strategy, and mainly on the Australian market and covered calls. So I wasn't going on anything too crazy. I was doing some calls, some straight puts, but mainly bull put spreads is what my one was. And I did well out of it for quite a period of time until I made one gorgeous mistake and lost a whole lot in a short period of time because I didn't stick to my rules. But yeah, I used to love it. I used to have a great time doing it. It was the first time I retired was options trading.
Are you confused about how to invest? Life Sherpa can ease the burden of having to decide for yourself. Head to lifesherpa.com.au to find out more. Life Sherpa, Australia's most affordable online financial advice.
So it sounds like you take a lot of your own experience, which you're imparting to people, especially in the book. Let's start talking about some of the practical steps that listeners and viewers can take today to start making the shift out of the middle.
One of the biggest things that I think about, and I say this to all my students, is that why would you be given more money to manage if you can't manage what you've already got? And so most people in their financial lives are very unorganized, right? They only get to money when there's a bill to pay, when there is tax time, when there's an emergency, or when it's too late. And so they're not running their financial life like a business. It's a very reactive process. And one of the big mindset shifts that have to be made is that, well, how are you going to start treating your financial life, your wealth, like a business? Because when you take on that level of psychology and take on that level of mindset, you start thinking about it in a very, very different way. So to me, the first thing is, well, how are we going to build a deep and strong foundation? I talk about in the book where a lot of people are in the space where they're kind of treading water financially. And you would meet a lot of people in the space as well, Phil, where it's kind of like they're doing a lot of stuff. Their legs are moving really fast. They're working really hard, but they just feel like they're not getting anywhere and they're stuck on this treadmill going around and around in life, right? And so one of the things that we've got to focus on doing is that we've got to put a floor underneath them. So how can we get close enough to the financial shore where we can put 2 feet down and stand firmly on a really strong foundation? And to me, foundation comes in 4 different ways. One, how are you going to create a system for your personal finances? So when I talk about that, for most people's financial, it's just a very reactive process. Money comes into their life, they earn it, it gets ravaged by the tax office and superannuation first and foremost. They get some money in their bank account, and then the urgencies kick in. Oh, I better pay for my mortgage, got to pay for my rent, got to pay for electricity bills, got to pay for the kids, got to pay for internet, got to pay for phone, I've got to pay for this, got to pay for this, got to pay for this. And then if there's any money left over, then I might put some away into savings. But unfortunately, for most people, they run out of money before they run out of month. So one of the biggest things we want to do first and foremost is install a personal finance system. So as soon as a dollar hits your bank account, it has a plan and it has a purpose. And in one of the first chapters of The Escape the Middle, the book, I take people through a process called a finance farm. How do we go and install a personal finance system so that every time a dollar hits your bank account, it knows exactly where it's going to go and you're going to become intentional with your finances? So that's number one. Number two is psychology. How do you turn on what I call your millionaire mode? And the subtitle of the book is Turn on Your Millionaire Mode and Build Wealth Which Outlives You. So how can we create the psychology and take on the mindset of a millionaire investor even before we are one, right? And so, unfortunately, we're just all given we have a dirty mind when it comes to money, right? We're not really given a solid foundation when it comes to it. We're taught that, money doesn't grow on trees. You've got to have money to make money. Wealthy people are evil, like all this type of garbage we're taught along the way. And so we've got to start fine-tuning our psychology. And what that means is, how do we start uncovering the hidden saboteurs, the mindset traps that we already have? And how do we start installing a new set of beliefs which are supporting us to where we want to be going in the future, right? So personal finance system, psychology. The next big one is, let's get a plan in place. And that's the plan for your finances and your strategy. And then how you're going to build a team around you. And the biggest thing from that is that then just get started. Stop waiting. Like, a lot of people are waiting for the perfect time or the perfect moment or the right weather, or when the kids grow up, or when their boss gives them a raise, or any of the other times that people are waiting. But I just suggest that people just get started. Even if it's $5 a week, I do not care. Start taking those steps into the marketplace so that you are starting putting some energy, some intention, some awareness towards where you want to be going, instead of just continually operating in the same way, staying exactly where you are right now.
There's a quote from the book that I really liked, which is starting with the meaning before starting with the money. Is this a key step in it? Because rather than just looking at a bunch of figures on a spreadsheet, you want to know why you're doing it. Am I reading that the correct way?
Yeah, you're absolutely spot on. And that meaning can come in multiple different ways. Like, one is that, well, it's not about the money, it's about the choices that money give you. Because money is just a unit of choice. That's all it is. So how can we set a target, what I call your financial freedom figure, and your pathway, where you've got this North Star sitting up in the sky that's going to pull you through the ups and downs of the marketplace, that you've got something that it means more than just, let's just make some money, because that's only going to get you so far. It's exciting, then you make some money, and then you realize, well, like, that's meaningless unless it gives you something in life, right? But the other thing comes down to all about intention. So you don't start with the money, you start with a meaning. We start with a meaning of what's the outcome that money is there to create for us in life. But then we start with the meaning behind and the purpose behind what element everything is serving in your portfolio. What is the purpose each element is serving your portfolio, right? So, like, your earning potential, what's the purpose that's there serving to help you create your ultimate goals? If you buy a property, what's the purpose of the property, right? Is it just capital growth? Is it cash flow? Is it, what I call momentum? If you're investing in the share market, are you investing for long-term capital growth? Are you investing for dividends? Are you trading for consistent profits? Like, we've got to get rid of all the assets, because that's just a means to serve the purpose. And instead, we want to focus on, well, how are we going to build a structured, systemized portfolio where every element is serving a purpose in the portfolio that's going to go from one deal to the next deal to the next, and ultimately lead you towards this place called financial freedom. But it's a key part of my teaching. It's all about intention.
It's a lot of hard work, isn't it? It's not something that you can take lightly, is it?
Yeah, but I also want to say that don't make it bigger than what it is. Like any journey, I think that wealth building is a marathon. It's not a sprint, right? And Phil, I'm sure in your teachings and things that you do, you might get the get-rich-quickers will come into your world at some points in time. And I get them as well. And they just want to come in, and they've spent decades getting themselves into their current financial position, but then they want to change it overnight. And so they go for the big goals or big kicks or something like that, instead of actually putting one foot in front of the other and just learning the system and rewiring their mindset and setting the right intentions in place and the right structure of their portfolio in place. And so I always think about it as that, learn one thing and do one thing. And we're talking about some big concepts here, and it doesn't mean that you have to know everything before you get started. I talk about this in the book. Like, the biggest thing is just get started and know that if you put one foot in front of the other and you take baby steps while you're building your financial IQ and your investment IQ, your whole world will begin to shift in a very short period of time. So don't make it too big in your mind so it stops you from getting started.
Another thing that you talk about is identifying your own strength to build a strategy that suits yourself. Tell us about that.
So let me take you back to my share trading journey, right? So in options, I'm a firm believer that everyone has a genius, firm believer. And so it's when we can double down and triple down on our strengths is when we can find our greatest source of leverage. You know, I talk about in the book, the 6 different types of leverage, right? The number one is all about your strengths. How do you double down and triple down on yourself? Now, I had this great experience probably about 10 years ago now. And I was at a New Year's party with some beautiful friends of mine. And we used to go down to Byron Bay and we'd spend a few days there just hanging out, chilling out, like talking cool stuff and just really good human beings and really interesting people. And one of the people there, her name was Vicky. And she was one of those people that really had a big impact on my life. So she used to do a lot of personality profiling. So she took me through this process. I don't know if you've heard of Roger Hamilton and talent dynamics. I don't know if you've heard of any of that. Great stuff, like really good stuff. She took me through this process and I went through this test and then she unpacked it for me. And as she was sitting there telling me what this test was saying, like I feel like I've been found out. Like she was so spot on and so accurate about my strengths, what I struggle with, where I'm in flow, where I'm out of flow, and what I find easy versus what I find difficult. And it was just uncanny. It was a really incredible experience. And so what I learned from that is that so many things that I was doing in my life, I was just trying to fix my weaknesses. I was trying to get better at the things that I just wasn't actually gifted at, where I was then neglecting and not spending enough time just on my strengths and what my core part of me is, that if I double down and triple down in that, my results would absolutely soar. And so what I learned to understand is that when we can double down and triple down on ourselves, it's going to be our greatest source of leverage and we can create the greatest results, right? Although I learned how to trade options and I learned how to trade shares, what I also found out was that it wasn't me in my natural flow state, right? Because I can tend to be, big picture thinker and I get distracted easily and then I want to do this and I want to do that and I've got a million ideas going on at any point in time and I have a high risk tolerance. And so when I was in the world of trading, I would try and twist rules and I'd change things and I'd try and, my position wasn't going well, I would try and adjust it and change it and things like that. And so I was not operating in my own source of genius. And so I don't believe that everyone should be renovating real estate or being a developer. I don't believe that everyone should potentially be running an Amazon business or even trading shares. I think that everyone should go, well, how can I build a portfolio and wealth based on me? How can I, in my job, in my income, how can I find out what I'm incredible at and just do the few things that I'm really good at, mitigate against your weaknesses, but how can I communicate based on who I am and then build a solid team around me to support me in the areas that I'm not so great at? And that's where having the best team around you is absolutely key.
What do you mean by a team?
Yeah. So here's the truth of the matter. You're only going to get world-class results when you get world-class advice. And because we're not given a solid financial education or investment education, we often have to rely on others to be able to support us. And, as people listen into your podcast and come to you to tap into your experience and your knowledge and your decades of understanding and your results, like we need to do that in all these different areas of our life. But unfortunately, the people that most people turn to build their wealth or get advice around that are their parents. And it could be a mortgage broker, it could be a real estate agent, it could be a financial planner. Now, nothing against any of those professions or any of the people in them. However, when I was used to teach people how to do some share stuff, I became a qualified financial advisor. And it took me 2 weekends via distance education to become a qualified financial advisor with an open book exam, right? And all of a sudden, I just lost absolute faith in the system in a big way. I became a real estate agent in a few weeks, and I didn't learn anything about real estate or investing. I just learned how to fill out contracts. I became a mortgage broker in a day because I talk about finance and lending all the time. It took me 3 hours. Now, I had some recognition of prior learning and things like that, but I've also, many of these as my clients, and I've worked with them over the years, and just because someone has a piece of paper doesn't mean they actually know how to invest. Right? Qualifications do not mean qualified to help you grow your wealth. I always think about a 6-star team, right? You need people that's going to help you with strategy. You need people that's going to help you with financing. You need people that are going to help you with deals and opportunities. You need people to help you with execution. You need people who help you with structuring, and you need people to help you with making sure you're safe for the future. And so when we can build this team around us, we can surround ourselves with incredible human beings that are great at what they do, and we can lean into other people's expertise and knowledge, right? I don't pretend to know how to trade shares or invest in shares anymore. That was a long time ago. It's not my skill set. It's not where I am. And, this is where we come and tap into like your expertise, Phil, to be able to learn how to do that because you're in the game all the time, right? And so for me, I'm a big believer in leaning on a team. I'm a big believer in surrounding yourself with incredibly intelligent people so you can focus on do what you do best and outsource the rest. It was one of the things I learned in a business course when I was a back-in-a-person trainer. It's something I've brought all the way alongside with me. So I think building your wealth team is a critical part of building your foundation.
And you're not going to find these people in the next cubicle in your corporate environment, are you?
no, generally
go and
not.
Look for them, and yeah. But I think also psychologically, you've got to come from a position of strength yourself by building up your own skill set, by starting out and actually starting to understand. Then you're going to find the kind of people that you really need, aren't you?
And you need to know that you're probably going to upgrade along the way as well, right? So you may have certain people on your team that are perfect for you starting out, but you may outgrow them and you might go to the next level, and then you need to upgrade to the team that you're working with, the people that can take you to where you're going, not just give you the advice at where you are right now. And I was meeting with a couple of clients just the other day, Ben and Carly, their names are, and they have had a broker for many years now, a mortgage broker. They've just started working with this couple, and they've had a mortgage broker for many years now. And this mortgage broker has now become a close personal friend. And so they already know that this person is not the person that's going to take them to where they go. Like as soon as they came to listen to some of my events and some of my how you structure your finances, they picked up about 3 to 4 different gaps that this broker was kind of telling them along the way. Oh, like keep everything in the same bank and do P&I and you should never pay LMI and a whole lot of different conversations, which I have very different philosophies around. And they were staying with this person because they had a relationship. Now, I'm all for relationships. I'm a big believer in building long-term relationships and, with long-term people, But like sometimes you have to know that in order to go to my next level, I need to raise the quality of people that I'm around. I need to raise the level of advice that I'm receiving in my life so I can tap into this next level, because otherwise they're only going to be able to give you advice at their own level. So always be willing to kind of upgrade along the way and know that you're going to have to.
I think there's a malaise these days. I mean, I see my daughter and the friends and the people she hangs out with, and they're lovely people, but some of them are incredibly cynical, and they also feel, there's that thing at the moment where younger people don't feel like they're ever going to be able to get into property because it's become so expensive.
Interesting. Yeah.
What would you say to them?
I would say that there's always a way, right? And I would say that people need to protect their minds, because when we go into the media, how old's your daughter, Phil?
She won't want me to say.
Okay, no worries. That's fine. Okay, got it.
Early 30s, thereabouts.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay, no worries. And so what we're hearing in the media is that the media is like blasting everyone by saying, oh, it's so unaffordable and you can't do this and you can't do that, and young people can't buy their own home and first home buyers are suffering and this is happening. And so we've got to protect our mind. We've got to protect our mind against the mind viruses that media spread. And as we know, media sells bad news, pure and simple, right? And we need to start protecting our mind. And we have to know that there is always a way. Sure, things are challenging. Sure, real estate is expensive. Sure, getting lending is tougher. And there are some challenges in the marketplace. But I would also say that now, compared to 20 years ago, although the value of real estate has gone up and it's harder to buy your first home, it's easier to make more money than ever before. There's so many options out there. There's so much education out there. There's so many things, just like what you do, Phil, like with your podcast here, where you can tap into experience at the drop of a hat. So while you're sitting there going, yeah, real estate's more expensive, so's the opportunity to make more money is easier. And so which belief are you going to sit on? Are you just going to sit on, because I was literally thinking about this yesterday and reading some stuff about this. Young people have just decided, well, I should just give up. I should never buy my own home. I'm just never going to get there. And they've defeated before they even begin. And they haven't even tried. They haven't even gotten started there. One of my young clients, James and his partner, Madison. So they bought their first home at 21 years old. And that home has now gone up by $200,000. It's out-earned them in terms of their equity growth. I had a meeting with them literally just 2 weeks ago, and we are planning on doing their second deal, and we've got their third deal laid out in the next 2 years alone. Now, these guys aren't earning millions. They weren't gifted a lot of money. They didn't get big inheritance. They didn't win lotto. None of these things. James is a tradie. Madison works in corporate. They earn average incomes. There's nothing special about them apart from the fact that they got themselves educated, they got a plan, and they took action on the plan. And so everyone has to make a choice. Am I going to choose to believe the media? Am I going to choose to believe that I can't buy my own home and I should just go and live for today and go traveling and go spend all my money and go do the avocados and do all the things? Or am I going to build something that matters? Am I going to set myself up for the future? Because I'm genuinely concerned for people who find themselves in the middle right now, who are not getting themselves educated for what I see coming. I see that a lot of people are going to find themselves steamrolled is a pretty intense word, but with some of the things that's coming in the future, the things that I'm seeing has happen in the marketplace, they're going to find themselves with not much choice. And I think there's an urgency now to really kind of take control of this area of your life.
You're a fan of micro-investing, aren't you?
Love it. Yeah, it's great. Yep.
You find that a good way to get started, just even to take that first step?
It's so easy and you can make it effortless. And the thing that stops people from getting started is fear. That's the thing that stops most people. And the thing that takes away fear is knowledge and experience. And so, but a lot of people, because they're scared about it, well, I'm too scared to get started, so I don't get educated. And I'm too scared to take the first step, so they don't get the experience. And so they stay in this place called fear, which keeps people stuck, right? Micro-investing, the beautiful thing about it is that you can start with $1. You can start with $5. It really doesn't matter. And I love to play games when it comes to investing because I just find it amusing. It keeps me interested. And it's such a good way to gamify your wealth creation, right? Because wealth building should be fun. Like, why the hell shouldn't it be fun, right? Make it fun. I want to normalize wealth creation in people's lives. And this is why I wrote this book. I want to normalize wealth creation. Normal is work to pay the bills. Let's normalize wealth creation and financial freedom and having these type of conversations and talk about dreams and things. That's what we want to do. I love to make wealth building fun. So I love to set up games in my own wealth building. And one of the games that I set up is with some of these micro investing apps like Rayiz, and in the US it's Acorns, and there's Bamboo is a crypto and micro investing app I used. In the share trading world, I used Brain Explosion, Spaceship, and a couple others, right? I've used some different ones. And so here's what I would always do. I love coconut water. I can never get enough of it. I drink a lot of it. I stockpile it. I think it's great. Love it. So every time I go to the grocery shop, if I find my favorite brand of coconut water 50% off, I don't just get one or two cartons. I do what people do with toilet paper nowadays when there's, COVID or when there's a cyclone or something we just experienced. And I fill up my trolley. Now, my daughter finds it the most embarrassing thing, but I will get 40, 50 bottles of coconut water because why the hell not? It's 50% off. Why not? I love getting a deal. And so I'm skipping around happily in the supermarket because I know I'm going to get a good deal. I get to the checkout. I pay for my coconut water. And if anyone's gone to Coles or Woolworths and you got your docket, and in the docket there's it says your savings. And so I might have saved $50 from that shop. I'm going to buy it anyway. I just got a better deal and I made some smart decisions. So I automatically go and take out my phone, and a minute later, I've invested $50 into my financial future. And you can do things like roundups in it. And so it rounds up, like if you spend $1.59, and you might set a standard that anything over 50 cents rounds up and invests the difference. And so 41 cents automatically gets taken out of my account. I don't feel it. And it goes towards my, building my investment portfolio. Same with dollar cost averaging. People say that I don't have enough money to invest. The common dogma for a lot of that we hear is that you should save 10% of your income. And some people go, well, Todd, cost of living, fuel is expensive, energy is expensive, the rent is expensive, I can't afford 10%. I go, great, start with 1%, right? And then month number 2, go to 2%. Month number 3, go to 3%. And I call it the 1% rule. And the more that you can take those small amounts and invest them in the marketplace, invest towards your financial future, you're training your brain, you're training your mindset and psychology that wealth building is important to you. As you start to do that, you start to take notice of your investing in wealth building and financial habits. You gain more awareness, you have more experience, and all of a sudden fear starts to dissipate. But you've done it in this small baby steps type of way, right? This one, just a big component of micro investing, dollar cost averaging, and just getting started.
So you say that financial freedom's not about retiring, but designing a life you don't need to retire from. Tell us about that.
I personally think retirement's a low standard. And here's what I mean by that. I've retired twice before in my life, retired. And my version of retirement is I lasted 2 weeks and I got bored out of my mind. Do we really think that life is about just sitting under a palm tree our entire life and that's it? Or do we feel that there's some more meaning to it? Do we feel that there's something that we're here to do on the planet? Do we feel that we're supposed to contribute in some way? Do we feel that we should be experiencing life in a big way? Or do we feel that we should sacrifice a good portion of our life just working to pay the bills until we one day reach this magical place called retirement? And the problem with this magical place called retirement is that the government keep changing the rules. The superannuation system gets tougher. The retirement age keeps growing. We're going to be 105 before we can retire soon. Most people are retiring on the pension. 77% of the population rely upon some form of the pension in retirement. Why would you sacrifice some of the best years of your life just exchanging time for money for the purpose of working to pay the bills to ultimately get to this place called retirement? What if instead you go, well, what is the experience of life that I want to have right now? And get clear on that. What if we start to understand, well, how much is that experience going to cost us? And I call this your financial freedom figure, right? Something I talk about in the book again. And then how do we start systematically working towards that? It's not about retiring. Retiring means that there's something you have to retire from because you don't want to do it anymore. What if instead that we just focus on building and designing a life around us that we love, that work isn't hard, it's just fun. Like I don't think I've worked a day in my life since at the age of 19 or 20. It's just been fun ever since then. What if you could design a life where you had the choices and the experiences? What if you got to spend it with the people you love? What if you could help people and support people at the way you want to be able to do it and spend the time with your family, right? I don't believe in sacrificing life for this one day when thing. I believe that we should be looking at all the areas of our life and how can we start systematically changing our strategy and how we approach our work. And do we need to re-educate? Do we need to go and learn trading? Do we need to go and learn how to invest? Do we need to go and set up the system? Do we need to double down, triple down our strengths? Do we need to invest in this? And how can we start moving towards an outcome where you have choice? It's not going to happen overnight, but it's better than spending 20, 30, 40 years of your life just doing something you don't enjoy just to pay the bills.
I'm depressed thinking about it. And so
Sorry
many people,
about that, Phil. But it's,
oh no, I'm just depressed for the people who might be taking that path. But it's like you say, you want wealth with purpose. It's like your conservation efforts for oceans and wildlife. You want to incorporate these things into your life as well as into your wealth as well, don't you?
Absolutely. It's just meaning. Like, what if you could build a life with so much meaning around it, where you could go and spend all the time with your family, right? That you want to be able to spend it. And, I'm in an interesting stage of my life now, right? So I'm 42 now. I've remarried. So from my first marriage, when I got married at a very young age, I had a daughter who's now 14 and she thinks she's going on 20 years old at this point in time. So I'm enjoying the start of the teenage years, yeah. And then I've just remarried very recently in the last couple of years, and I have an 18-month-old son. And so I'm reflecting on my life now at 42 being a dad versus 27, 28 being a dad, and reflecting on the experience of some of the things I missed out on because of the stage of life that I was in and what I was focusing without that level of understanding that I have now versus how present I am as a father now and how much more time and opportunity I have. And so I'm just enjoying it so much. Like, it's such a different level. And so I just think that people should design a life where they can spend their life with their family, the people they love, with the people, the meaningful relationships really make a difference. Fully experience this beautiful gift called life in this beautiful world. Like, give back to things that you believe in. Find your mission and your purpose and find the meaning in that and have an impact on other people. And then find something bigger than yourself to give back to. And, you know, as you said, like for me, one of the things is conservation, right? I'm a nature junkie. One of my earliest memories is seeing my parents walk off. I was born in the Solomon Islands, which is a little bit different and weird. Look at me and you go, yes, you're not Solomon Islander, Todd. Like, but I was born in the Solomon Islands.
You're never going to play rugby, eh?
Well, no, I played rugby earlier on, but yeah, not with the Solomons. Love the Solomons. But one of my earliest memories was watching my parents walk off the beach, going scuba diving, and the wrecks in there. And so as soon as I was old enough, I got my ticket and I spent a lot of time underwater. It's one of my favorite places in the world. And but I've also seen how humans have destroyed it as well. And I've seen how humans have poached animals in Africa and things like that. And it breaks my heart. It really does. And so I think that when we have the opportunity to be able to give back and do something good for the planet and leave a bit of a legacy, I feel as an obligation. And a lot of people I speak to want to be able to give back to the world in a bigger way than they're doing right now.
Okay, so tell us about the book. Tell us where people can buy it and what it's called again.
Yeah, the book is called Escape the Middle. And this has been 2 years that I've been in the process of writing this book. And it is a labor of love. It really is a legacy book to me. And I have put everything into it. But what you rightly said earlier on is it's a roadmap. It's designed for anyone, no matter what phase of the journey that you're in right now. Are you just starting out, or you do have tens of millions in a portfolio already? You're going to be able to pick up this book and you're going to get something incredible out of it, because it's going to lay out a roadmap for you that you can then just follow step by step. Now, this isn't just one of those, let's read it and it's all fluffy and things like that. Like, it's full of real practical advice and real practical
I noticed
tools.
that there's a lot of practicalities and a lot of charts and flow charts and things to do. It's very, very
Big
practical.
time. And I've also created an online resource that people can get as well. As I tell in the book, that when you buy the book, you tap into that. And I go through some other trainings and some videos and some worksheets you can download and go and do. Because I don't want you to just read something. I want you to actually do it. I want by the end of the book that you've taken positive action steps and you've gotten results already if you take the action steps and you go and apply it. And it's designed to lead people to a pathway, give you a step-by-step plan to escape that place called the middle. So if anyone's found themselves in this place where they're going, I'm doing what I was taught, I've gotten my education, I've got into the workforce, I'm changing time for money, I put money away in a super, maybe you bought a home, maybe you've done this, and you found yourself and you're asking this question, I thought there was more to life. This book was written for you, right? This was written to give you a pathway out of that into a life of freedom, of choice, of meaning, of opportunity. And I've written it in a very easy read. I've written it in a way it's very practical and very tangible. And it's in all the major bookstores. You've got a QBD, you've got a Dimmicks. It's in all the airports. It's in a lot of independent bookstores. Officeworks just picked it up as well. So it's it's gone mass market in Officeworks. But also you're going to find it on Booktopia. You're going to find it on Amazon. And there's some of the easiest ways you can go and do it. Or just go to www.escapethemiddle.com and you're going to be able to find how to do it there and how you can access some of those trainings as well.
Todd Polke, I've really enjoyed our time together. Thanks very much.
It was great, mate. Thanks so much, buddy.
Thanks for listening to Shares for Beginners. You can find more at sharesforbeginners.com. If you enjoy listening, please take a moment to rate or review in your podcast player, or tell a friend who might want to learn more about investing for their future.